There's nothing better than testing your app on real Windows tablets. But let's face reality, you may not be ready to spend money for a tablet computer yet. Don't worry. Visual Studio includes a tablet simulator that lets you try out your application on a virtual rendition of the real hardware. When you install Visual Studio with the Windows 10 Universal Apps options selected, it adds a set of mobile emulators and tablet simulators to your computer. These are available as deploy and debug locations when working in Universal App projects. Be aware, if you didn't install the Universal App options during the Visual Studio install, you won't be able to follow along with this demonstration. I'm using the code in this project, SimTest. It's a universal Windows application that has a real simple UI. It's here in this main page.xaml. It consists of a couple of labels at the top of the screen where I'll show the current layout position, whether I'm in landscape mode or in portrait mode. And then I have two images. The left image I'll be able to size by using a pinch and zoom gesture. The right image I'll be able to rotate by using a rotation gesture. And the point of this demonstration is I want to put breakpoints in my code and watch these events fire while I'm on the simulator. The simulator is already installed. You can see it in this drop down here. This drop down shows up when you're in a universal Windows application. Now you'll notice that the simulator is checked at the top, so I'll make sure that's rechecked. And then I can start the simulation by clicking on the debug menu and choosing start debugging, or I can click on the green triangle next to the word simulator. After a few seconds, my emulator launches. You can see that it's duplicated my desktop on my desktop computer over here. And then this represents my SimTest application. Now there's some extra numbers showing up in here. These are diagnostics numbers that are added by Visual Studio. We'll ignore those for the moment. And then I'll maximize this. You'll notice that I'm working in mouse mode. The simulator has a number of buttons along the side here that let me do things like change my resolution, take screenshots of the application. I can switch the mode. Currently I'm in mouse mode, but I can switch to basic touch mode. Now I can do things like drag it with my finger. And I get a circle on the screen that represents my fingertip. If I go to this mode, I'll end up with two circles. Now you use your mouse wheel to separate those dots. That represents how far apart your fingers are. I'll move my two circles over this picture, and then the way you manipulate it is you hold down the left mouse button and then move the mouse wheel. That represents a pinch gesture. For the rotation gesture, I'll click on this button, and then watch what happens when I rotate my wheel. You'll see that the two fingers move around in a circle. You see the two circles moving there, and as a result, the image rotates around a center point. The point of this demonstration, though, is to show how to debug this application when I do those zoom gestures or when I rotate the screen. So I'll move back to Visual Studio, go to my code behind page, and I'll put a breakpoint in my size changed event handler. I'll press F9. This is the code that runs when I do the pinch and zoom. So I'll put one breakpoint here, one breakpoint here, and a breakpoint here. Then I'll return back to my simulator. And this time when I do my zoom gesture, you see that I hit my breakpoint. And at this point, everything you learned about debugging applies. You can use all the same windows and techniques I've shown you. So I'll click on continue. And then I'll click on this rotate clockwise. That simulates you turning the simulator in your hands. So you're now in portrait mode. And you see that I hit my breakpoint here in my size changed event handler. Now I'll remove that breakpoint and then click on continue. Switch back to the emulator, and then I'll rotate it back the other direction. Now, when you click on this minimize button, it doesn't close the simulator. Microsoft leaves it running so that it's quicker to load the next time. When you're actually ready to shut down the simulator, you can go to your taskbar and right-click and choose Close Window. This is a universal Windows application, which means it works across multiple devices. And you can see that when I go to this drop-down, that there are some mobile emulators that I can run this on. So I could pick this 4-inch phone, for instance, this one here, and then click on the green triangle. My application loads into the screen. I'll go back and put a breakpoint here on my size changed event handler. And then I'll click on the rotate button. And look at that. The same breakpoint that I hit inside my tablet simulator is also hit when I use my mobile emulator. That concludes this look at tablet emulators. Eventually you'll want to test on a desktop and tablet device. When that time comes, you'll find those deploy options here. This is for deploying to the local machine, and this is deploying to any attached devices that you have.